I was horrifically burned out across the board. The cancer was a major wake-up call that I needed to start paying attention and start refilling my cup and support my health, or I was not going to be here to see that in the long run.
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thanks, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thanks.com. That's THANKZ.com with the subject line The Founder's Life, and you'll get $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Lauren Kaplan. Lauren, thank you for joining. Can you please kick things off by introducing yourself to our audience?
Well, Leo, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I am Lauren Kaplan. I am the founder of GrowthOps Advisory. We are a strategic business and HR partner because performance through people is how businesses succeed. Started the business in 2018 and now have a group of 10 helping me serve our clients from all aspects of HR, business strategy, people performance, and everything in between.
Excellent. And what brought you on your journey to where you are now?
Well, the best place is to always start at the beginning. And back in college, I majored in operations, and much of my early career was in that focus of operations. And along the way, I got my MBA, I worked for a consulting firm, and I wound up at a startup. I always knew I wanted to start my own business. I just wasn't sure what that was going to be. And I landed at a startup. It was called Nomad Financial. They've since been acquired. And they were a accounting, CFO advisory, and tax firm that worked with startups. They were a startup for startups, and I was the COO. And what I came to see over and over was that all of our clients' business problems were people problems. And at first, I thought it was more centered around operations. You know, if you automate and you create really efficient workflows and you give people what they need to be successful, they'll succeed. But there's a lot more to helping people succeed than just operations. There's clarity, there's communication, there's regular feedback, there's training. There's a lot of this support that needs to go into that. And when I left Nomad, I wound up working with a couple of clients who were in that ecosystem of the company I'd been with before. Either they'd been referred to me through those networks or they were a client or used to be. And that's what I kept seeing. Even though my focus was operations, it were the people problems that my clients needed the most help with. And in my role as COO, I was already overseeing HR. And so I started to say yes to more of that work. And more, it just became apparent that that's where a lot of these companies needed the most help. And that's what formulated, that saying that we have is all business problems are people problems because your business is made up of people. And people are very unique. They're an individual puzzle. And as a strong leader and manager, you've got to be the missing piece. You have to understand them as a unique individual and then fit that missing piece to unlock the potential that people have. And it is not easy, but it's incredibly rewarding when you're able to do it successfully.
I'm impressed because being in the people business, I find it's a challenge every day.
Yeah.
It's always surprising what we come across.
Yeah, I think most business owners would tell you that business would be easy if it wasn't for people. And because you have those days when it's just so difficult. And what's so interesting that I will say is, while we might make it look easy, that doesn't mean I don't experience all the same challenges with my own people and motivating people and ensuring they get what they need. What I think is so helpful for us and why we've been successful in what we're doing is that because we're a third party, we don't have the same emotional attachment to it. It's a lot easier to have the clarity as to what that individual person needs or how to talk to them or how to motivate them or where to move them on the bus to what seat, because we don't have the same emotional attachment. But I fall into all the same pitfalls that I'm supporting clients through when I'm extremely emotionally attached to something. And I'm lucky that my team is so well versed and they provide me with support on those things when I need it as well. But it's hard. It's really hard to detach from those emotions, to detach from what the outcome can be. It's funny because think about when something is low stakes. If you're not worried about the outcome, it almost always goes well anyway. And when you are worried about the outcome is when a lot of the times it feels like there's so few options that will go well. and you feel like you're threading this really fine needle to get to the outcome that you're looking for. And so a lot of times we're also helping our clients understand that there's more than one outcome that's good, and helping them open that aperture, reduce some of that feeling of risk, be a vent for some of those emotions, and then help them approach it the best way to get the outcome they're looking for.
Makes a lot of sense. I like the way you look at it. And what does family mean to you?
Well, family is your support system. That's your foundation. What are you doing all this for if not for your family? And that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean the resources to support a certain lifestyle. It can be to make the right time for your family, to be there to support them or to just spend quality time with them. But separately, family is so important to me. I've got two young girls. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have, my husband, and he's got this incredibly large family. And I have a very small family. My dad was an only child. My mom had one sister. So I have only 2 cousins, and that's it. At my wedding, it was like my core family, my parents, my brother, and myself, and then our friends that we consider family. And my husband, his family was over 150 people on the guest list. They are a massive family. They're incredibly close. It's really being so welcomed into his family and seeing how close they are and how supportive they are can really deepen your view of how critical relationships are. And while I love that his family is so close, I think it also reinforces that deep relationships can come in so many shapes and forms, and they're wonderful and special, and they need to be protected. And, I have obviously that with my immediate family, but it's wonderful to have gained that perspective too and feel that way about some of my closest friends as well.
Nice. Yeah, I think, again, some great wisdoms that you've learned, especially from the extended family on your husband's side.
150 of them.
That's a lot. And what does health mean to you? And I say that meaning mental health, physical health, nutrition. How does health look like for you?
Yeah. Well, when you and I first connected, I shared the story of my health journey of the last couple of years. And I think it's a crucible moment to start with in this kind of question, because it's informed and shaped a lot of my view on health, that health is wealth. You don't have that, you really don't have anything. And so to reshare that story for our viewers, a couple of years ago, September of 2023, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And my second child, who's now 2.5, she was 9 months at the time. And the story leading up to that was extremely unusual. Everything about my case was unusual. The tumor had appeared overnight, and it was massive. And it appeared as my husband and I were working on getting pregnant with our second. And by the time I got into the doctor to see the doctor, I happened to have been newly pregnant. So most people, they hear this story and they think, oh, it came up while you were pregnant. No, it came up, and then I got pregnant shortly thereafter, which complicated the process of getting a diagnosis. Doctors were very concerned about doing any kind of testing while I was pregnant. So it was January of 2022 when the tumor came up. I delivered in December of 2022, but it was another 9 months before I was able to actually have the mammogram and sonogram and then a biopsy to confirm that it was cancer. And what makes the story even more complicated is that it was stage 0 breast cancer, but it was very, very large. It was about the size of a clementine. It was so large, it was physically projecting out of my chest. And when it appeared at that size. It was not something that had grown over time or was being ignored. It just appeared, and it was a very large mass all at once. And there were a lot of other aspects to the diagnosis, and most of the tumor was hormone negative, which is very unusual, with a very small part that was hormone positive. Pathology, they believe I had 2 different tumors. And when we took this to oncologists, post double mastectomy, they had not seen a case like mine before. Now, the good news is it was stage 0, it was the earliest possible stage that you can have. But we went to 5 different cancer institutions, and every oncologist said, wow, what an unusual case, and actually ordered the pathology to be redone because they said this doesn't make sense. And it turns out what they were looking for was microinvasion, thinking your tumor appears to be an invasive tumor, yet it's not. We don't understand this. 4 different pathologists confirmed the same thing. It was still non-invasive. And for many months, we were consulting with dozens of doctors. They would take my case to their tumor board because they weren't sure what to recommend for treatment. And ultimately, they said, we do not recommend chemotherapy, mainly because we don't have data on whether it's effective for stage 0 breast cancer. But we don't know if radiation or hormone therapy would benefit you or if the risks outweigh the reward. So it's your choice. And ultimately, we decided to do something very unconventional. I moved forward with reconstruction, and they took more samples during reconstruction. And if we found more cancer, I would move forward with both radiation and hormone therapy. If we didn't, I would not move forward with anything. And luckily, we did not find any more cancer. And so, I'm one of the lucky ones. It's the best case of the worst case, right? Cancer is an incredibly scary diagnosis to receive. And the two questions that you always ask yourself when you get that diagnosis is, number one, am I going to die? And number two, how did this happen? And so when you ask about what does health mean to me, this kicked off a level of intensity for my health journey that I've not had before. I was always pretty health conscious. I was the friend that was eating strawberries and a turkey sandwich after a night out at the bar while my friends were digging into like chips and, fried food. I grew up in a home that was very health conscious. My father is a physician, and my mom made homemade meals every night. She would say no to McDonald's, and we'd say, why not? And she'd say, because I love you. And that's, we grew up with this really healthy mindset. And, but I wasn't a well person all these years. And what I've discovered, because that question of why, you just can't shake it once you've gotten a diagnosis like this. What I discovered over the last couple of years was through functional medicine and a lot of traditional Chinese medicine and herbal medicine support, a couple of key things that lead to metabolic dysfunction and need a lot of support. And this is very personal for me. Of course, it's not for everyone, but there's some principles here that benefit people. Number one, sleep is everything. Sleep is foundational. And if you don't have high quality or consistent sleep, your body does not have the ability to eliminate all the trash in your body, your brain, and process and detox. Number two, I had gut dysbiosis. I had something called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, since I was a kid from lots and lots of courses of antibiotics. And we addressed that with both an antibiotic and an herbal treatment. And it changed my life. It eliminated my irritable bowel syndrome. And it actually, I'd say my seasonal allergies are 95% gone. My food intolerances have evaporated. And I also discovered I have a gene mutation, which is actually incredibly common. They believe 40 to 50% of people have this. It's called the MTHFR mutation, where it impedes your body's ability to detox and to methylate B vitamins. So exposure to synthetic B vitamins, such as folic acid, which in the US, all grains are fortified with folic acid, that can actually cause your body to block absorption of B vitamins. And B vitamin deficiency leads to all kinds of metabolic issues across, energy, brain function, nervous system, even things like anxiety and depression can be significantly amplified by a lack of proper balance. And it's all cofactors with, your mineral absorption and things like that. And systematically uncovering these things and working through them and supporting my body has been transformational for my health and has put me to a place where I didn't know what good health meant for almost my entire life. What health meant to me a few years ago was more along, well, you eat healthy and you move your body. And now I see that there's so much more individualization that's needed for you to be peak performance. It kind of overlaps with how I think about our business. Like, we want to help our clients perform through people. I can't perform if my body is dragging. And so, like I said, I think health is foundational for everything. And the last piece of this is it's the stress of everything you take on. The choices you make in your life, the job that you have, the business that you're running. If you don't have your health, you can't show up for those things. You often put others first, but you can't do that indefinitely and think it's an endless well that can continue to pour out, because eventually you'll be empty and you'll be left so burned out that you can't take care of yourself, and you make bad choices that make and compound those health issues and make them worse and worse. And I think that's where I was a few years ago. I was horrifically burned out across the board. The cancer was a major wake-up call that I needed to start paying attention and start refilling my cup and support my health, or I was not going to be here to see that in the long run. So, what I hope is sharing that story is that people who are on that edge, that they take warning that you can't keep going and think that you'll just skirt by. There isn't some other side that you'll get to where now it's all okay. Because if you burn yourself out along the way, you're never going to get to that destination. And quite frankly, is that destination worth burning out for? I think that's also the question you have to ask yourself.
I think that's a definitely good question. And I think Americans take pride in how little time off they have. And I don't think that's particularly healthy.
Yeah.
What do you like?
Yeah.
Go on.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so what do you like to do for fun?
Well, similar to my oldest, I love stories. So whether that's through movies or theater or books, I really, really enjoy, a good coming of age story. I particularly love sci-fi fantasy. That is my jam. I just love the magic of it and the imagination and how much that can ignite in you. The creativity that comes with it. It's so fulfilling. It feels like the way that I describe an amazing book. It's like a piece of cake that is so good you want to shove the entire thing in your mouth at once. Like you can't even wait to devour it. That's how much I love a really good book. And I love reading business books, and I love to share a lot of those insights, not just with my clients, but friends. Like teaching is a big part of what I love, and I get to do that every day with my business and my job. And otherwise, I love spending time with my kids. It's so fun to see, 2.5 and 5 years old is such an amazing age because so much of the world is new to them. And to see the joy and the wonder and the imagination that children have when they're experiencing something new or they're incorporating it into what they already know, and the, really smart ways that they make those connections, it's so joyful, and it reminds you to stay centered and reminds you that joy is what you should be seeking and supporting, not just for you, but your kids and your friends, your family, and the world. So spending time with them. And it doesn't matter what we're doing. We could be out having an adventure, or we could be at home playing with little dolls, making up stories. I love that. And last, I like anything creative. I love creating things. I used to sew a lot. I don't have as much time for that, to make dresses and clothes anymore. But now I will do all kinds of arts and crafts with the girls. I made them headbands. They wanted me to wear one of the headbands that we made together. We have all little gems on them, and they're sparkly, and everything is rainbow. And it's really fun. It's fun to get to do those things, but also see their joy and delight in doing them together too.
Nothing quite like that joy from the kids.
Yeah.
So what books would you like to recommend? Some sci-fi and some business books?
Great question. Okay, hold on. I've got a couple of books on my nightstand I'm looking at. There's one called Mind Your Body by Nicole, is it Sachs? It talks about the mind-body connection between chronic illness and pain, and it is exceptional. Just the way that she phrases things, the connection that is being well established between an overactive nervous system and chronic health issues, and being in a constant state of flight or fight. I think every entrepreneur, I think every human should read this book, because I think that it can help unlock a lot of these unhealthy patterns and triggers that you don't even realize you're living your life with in such productive ways. And when you can do that, not only do you benefit, but so does everyone around you, because you're just calm and you're happy, and there's more room in your life for the joy that we were just talking about. So I think that's an exceptional book. And the other one I'd recommend is this herbal treatment book. It's called Herbal Remedies for Common Ailments, and it's by a woman who's an herbalist. It is incredible. One of my kids had a runny nose since the day she was born, and once I really started to use more herbal treatments, the last time she had a cold, I gave her some of the herbal remedies they recommended, and that cold was gone in 2 days. And normally that would have been 6 to 8 weeks, and we all would have been sick. So that's my other recommendation, Herbal Remedies for Common Ailments.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Sounds like some good recommendations. And then how does a balanced life look for you?
Balance is knowing that there's some things you're not, the idea of embrace the suck. Try to get that out of the way first thing in the morning, and then everything else is gravy. Everything else that you get to do that day, whether it's a hard day of work, putting in long hours because you got to get something done, or it's a lighter day and taking care of a couple things to make your time with your kids more enjoyable. It might even mean cooking a home cooked meal to be able to sit down together at 5:30 and talk about your day. I think that's balance. Not every day will look the same. And for me, I don't like things to be the same every day. I like to switch up the routine because it feels a little more adventurous. which matters to me. But I think that's balance. It's knowing what you need that day, matching your day to your energy and what you're capable of, because it is a marathon, not a race.
Very true. And I say that as a marathoner. And what has been a pivotal moment in your life? I mean, this, you could argue you've probably got a very easy answer there, but what has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Well, I think we'll put a pin in the cancer diagnosis, because I think we already talked about that one. Actually, it was getting fired from Nomad before I started GrowthOps. They did me a favor because I had overstayed at that job, and it wasn't the right fit for any of us, but we were all working really hard and trying to make it work. And I appreciate that we all wanted to do that. Of course, at the time, it was very hard to be fired. It was the only job I'd ever been fired from. But they did me a favor because it propelled me forward into starting my own business. And that was my dream. My entire life, I knew I wanted to own my own business. And the connections and the network that I was able to develop while I was at Nomad set me up for success in GrowthOps in a way that I wouldn't have had without that job. And I would not have moved forward when I did if they hadn't said, time's up. And so I think that was a crucible moment that moved me to where I am today. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. There's ups and downs in being a business owner, but working a 9-to-5 is hard, and being a business owner is hard. You're choosing your hard every day, but this is the right one for me. And I'm so grateful in the end that we parted ways at that time, because here I am today and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
I think what is meant to happen happens to a large extent. Not always that way, but more often than not, the journey just shows up on what it needs to be. And it's definitely not easy being a business owner. I think a 9-to-5 job is a lot easier.
Well, it's funny. I've made the same statement before, but then when I look at it, it depends, I think, on what's the way to describe this? I think it depends on what drives your motivation or your fear. Because I think some people are so scared of being fired. They're scared that they don't have agency over their income or their choices. They have to fit into a box of what their manager wants, of what the company wants. And I believe that there are many people that those boxes are very well defined for them to be there. And there are people who the boxes of entrepreneurship or the destruction of those boxes is great for those people to be there. And I think that, different strokes for different folks is really what drives the beauty of the world and people finding their individual purpose. You can find purpose anywhere you go. It's just a matter of your view on it. So for some people, like I said, I think that 9-to-5 is great. And for others, it's stifling. I'm one of those.
Fair enough. Me too. I have never had a real job. I've never worked for anyone else. I think I'd be a horrible employee. But what's one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
I think the most important advice for someone who wants to run their own business is you've got to find something that you can show up every day and be motivated to do. And you have to understand the basis of that motivation for yourself. Is it because it's a problem you feel and you want to solve it? Is it that you see other people feel this and that's what's driving you? It's to solve it for others. What's the source of the motivation that you will draw on when things are hard, when you experience rejection, when you experience failure? Because those are inevitable when you are trying to do something new. They just are. And you've got to have the resiliency to see the business through or to see your idea through the naysayers and the lack of support and the lack of resources and the lack of time and all the things you don't have enough of to just get where you have the vision to go. It's that well of motivation. You got to have that. You got to know where it's coming from, and you have to be able to hold on to that as you go. And then there's a flip side to this. It's also to know when to pivot. It's also to see that something isn't quite working or there's no market for it. There's no market, you don't have a business. If the market's too small, you're limited in how big you can get. So it's recognizing that piece too and pivoting, because so much of what you're doing can actually be applied in a lot of places. Great advice. Well, thank you for joining us today. And how can people find you? They can find me on LinkedIn, Lauren A. Kaplan, or go to GrowthOpsAdvisory.com, says in operations, and reach out, please. I love connecting with other entrepreneurs or aspiring folks and seeing how I can be helpful and supportive. Well, thank you. And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.